Good morning. This video is going to be the first in a series I'm going to do on hickory club heads. I'm going to go through the different designs, the advantages of some of them over others, and what I personally look for in both the clubs as they're constructed and some modifications that I typically do to ones to make them a little bit more playable for me personally. Now, what I'm holding is a Windsor Niblick, and I'm going to start with the Niblicks and work my way back through the set as this continues, trying to keep these videos at around 3 minutes or so, maybe a little less even. The Windsor was a good hit. It was a retail copy, I think made by Spalding. Think of their cheap set of Bobby Jones, if you will. I like these because they run 30 to 40 grams heavier than any other head you're going to find, and allows me to do a lot of custom grinding on these. Plus they have a flange on them, a big heavy flange that, as you know, helps to get the ball up in the air, give it a little bit of a spin, if you will, or a higher trajectory. The lines on the faces, I actually wish this had dots, because you can get more spin out of a dot face than you can out of a line face if you go back through and refresh the dots. Simply because it has more surface area to grab the ball. Now, that's one issue. One of the problems that I always had with Niblicks, and I'm trying to grab the right one here to show you, this Beeline Niblick. The face, when they start turning the loft, gets very much in front of the hosel. And if I'm trying to use this as a sand wedge and go in and tweak it to 52, 54, 56 degrees, it's going to get very out front of it. I like taking the old mini waffles, adding weight to them with some lead on the back and making a little bit more flange, and then turning them to, you know, a wedge loft, which would be 52 through 56 or even 58 degrees. The problem I get into is the face gets very much out in front of the hosel. Now, George Nichols made a lot of his clubs this way. All of his Niblicks have the face out in front, and that doesn't bother some people, although it kind of boogers my eyes up. I don't like looking at that if I can help it. I can play it if I have to, but I'd prefer to have the face back. And one of the things I noticed on one of my very first Niblicks I ever bought, this old Thistle, good heavy head, is that they had gotten the face, but it's kind of hard for me to set it up so you can see it. Even though that face looks like it's out front, as you can see, they brought it back in line with a small bend right here that puts it more in line with the hosel, which when you're looking down at it, the face isn't as far forward as you might think. I like that idea, and so I started trying to replicate it. And I ended up making a mandrel to go down a hosel so I could get this thing good and cherry hot and then bend it. This one was one that I tried to bend, or started bending, before I caught on to getting it cherry hot to do it. These old mini waffles are two pieces that are soldered or friction welded right here where you want to bend it, and it causes them to snap. Now what you're looking at now is, I could easily have welded this. I've got TIG welders and stuff here in the shop, but I went ahead and cleaned that snap. It was getting a little bit of a fracture back here. I took a file and cut it out to get good metal that was clean, and I've tried JB Weld just to see if it'll hold it. If it didn't, that's all right. I'll clean all this out and weld it. The other thing I frequently do, and the shine has got me, you can see the shine on this face. That's where I've taken a good mill file, a large one, ran it down the face to true the face up so that I've got a good true surface on the face of the club. Then I'll clean these little squares back up, maybe deepen the grooves a little bit, and get them to where I can play it. The other thing you'll notice is there's a huge flange on the bottom of this. I shaped this out of JB Weld and tungsten. I initially was using either lead or solder on the backs of them. I guess you could weld it, although, you know, you take chances trying to weld this old metal. There's a lot of different things that went into those. It's not very good metal sometimes, and you'll get a lot of impurities in the weld. That can give you some complications trying to weld. Brazing is probably a safer route to go if you want to put something on there permanent with flux and brass. This has worked well for me. I've had some issues sometimes with it chipping along the leading edge, but pretty much not. Now I use the regular JB Weld, the long set stuff, not the instant, and I kind of mix the tungsten powder into it until I get almost a biscuit dough type of consistency that'll spread on there. One thing that's very important is make sure you've got good contact. Spread it on and get what they call a wet coat first. Even if you have to use some that doesn't have any tungsten in it, that will help the other adhere to it rather than the surface tension causing it to roll over the surface as you try to put it on. I then rough shape it by fingers after it sets up some, and then go back and finish it up with a file. End up with a good looking thing. I've got this thing to where I think this Windsor Niblick weighs 289. I've gotten this one up to 283 with the weight that's been applied to it. It now has, as you can see, a generous amount of bounce to the sole and a good 3/4 inch wide sole. So it makes one devil of a sand wedge. Gene Saracen can eat his heart out. The double offset that I put into it by heating it cherry hot, I copied from that Thistle. Now I have that sole where it's much more in line with the hosel as it comes down. I'm not looking at that face sticking way out in front. And this has 56 degrees of loft, which makes it a perfect sand wedge for me. One that really generates a lot of spin if I need it to. Has enough bounce and flange to it that I can, and weight low, that I can use it easily out of a bunker. It pops it out. Anyway, that kind of covers Niblicks for today. Hope that gave you some ideas. Don't be scared to experiment a little bit. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. Have a great day.